Thank you, folks, as the credits roll. You can't do that on Netflix, right? I think we know everybody here who's coming up. Please welcome Marc Shiller, Sara Schiller, I noticed in the credits, producers, directors, they've done it all. Alejandro Veciana, you're here with us. Edited along with Marc. And to moderate, Karen Robinovitz, please. Thank you so much.
Okay, while they're setting up, I'm going to tell you a very cute and funny story about Marc. When Sara and I are, I've been friends with both Marc and Sara for 14 years. And when Sara and I were in the phases of planning our business together, I spent a lot of roll out of bed and get right to their house mornings. And I remember the day that Marc was like, okay, well, we're filming today. And I was like, I'm unshowered. I have no makeup. I'm broken out. I'm wearing my pajamas. And he was like, no. And I was like, no, can I go home and shower? And then I'll come right back. No. And it's like this incredible, I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I know. It's always very urgent with Marc.
Yeah.
Everything has to be done.
And the conviction was so incredible and so real. There was no way I could actually say no. And that is something that Marc has always had and continues to have. And I think it's one of the most kind of amazing things about him, because it's how he gets through life. I mean, he's somebody who makes something happen. And if you want something from you, he's going to get it.
I mean, I agree completely. I think that's why, how he got this movie made is just like, he has an amazing ability to convince people.
So I would love to hear about how you two collaborated.
Well, so Marc, I had worked with Marc's dad, Larry, and I think Marc sort of approached me through him. He had like hard drives full of like footage that since the moment that he had a stroke, he had people, whether it's nurses, doctors, his family, caretakers, therapists, he wanted everybody to film him. So he had all this footage, and he wanted to do something with it. And basically we went through every single second of every file that he had, and we slowly started piecing together something that could make sense. Some of the footage I thought was really very moving. It was all so incredibly personal. I think that's one of the things that struck me the most, is how like his willingness to put himself in such a vulnerable position and just be so open with me and with now everybody, and to share his story. So yeah, we went through every second of all the footage, and it was through communicating and as best as we could, we put the movie together. And Marc had actually, and in the middle of making it, I realized that he had a very precise vision of what exactly he wanted to do. It wasn't sort of like me doing it and then him approving. He was like, no, this has to go here. This has to go here. It was very specific. We would cut. He would say, now, like cut now. And it was like that precise. So it was a very long process, but it was a very fun one. I had a great time putting it together with you. Yeah.
How is it to watch it now for all of you?
Oh man, it's for me, it's mixed feelings of like I relief that we can finally screen it, because we've been wanting to show people for such a long time. We had plans in 2019, and then in 2020, obviously we couldn't because of the pandemic. So to finally screen it here now at ReelAbilities, which I think is a perfect home for this movie, and it's a perfect context for it, and we're just really grateful for Isaac and Yara and everybody at ReelAbilities to host us, because I think it couldn't be a more perfect home for the movie.
Sarah, how does it feel for you to see this?
So this is the first time I've seen the film. I know people are surprised at that, but this was Marc's project. And if you know Marc, he either pre-stroke or post, if he has a project and a vision and a goal, he's going to do it. And I really wanted this to be Marc's project. And I think I did try to stay out of the way of these two working together. And Alejandro has infinite patience, which when you're working with someone who is just learning how to communicate and has so many challenges communicating, their relationship and this remarkable ability to produce something that was so touching and special was incredible. I think it's an amazing achievement for someone who had to, this is not an easy film to make.
No.
And I think for those of us who have made films or shorts, just making something when you can communicate and you can function is difficult enough. But Marc really came to the table and put together something really lovely.
Before we came out and I was telling Marc I'm like unbelievably proud of him, and he's like, no. I'm like, this is a big deal. No. And I'm like, it would be a big deal with or without this having happened to you. Like, it is a big deal and an incredible accomplishment. And it is amazing that you are and will always be just this remarkable storyteller. And you have an incredible way of sharing your soul and yourself through this. And I think that you really feel who you are. Are you?
So Marc can't speak right now
We
because
don't
his
have-
Chattable on his iPad is not working. The Wi-Fi is not working. And thank goodness we have Mary, who is not seen on the film, but her voice is heard, one of his speech therapists who's been with him for 7 years, as well as Darcy, who's been with him for 7 years. And actually this whole room is full of people that have been with us for 7 years. And I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight to support Marc and me. It's been incredible, the support that we've received and that Marc's continuing to receive. And one of the things that I think is a misnomer when the doctors or people say, oh, after 6 months, they're 90%, they're going to be 90% where they're ever going to get, they're never going to get more. And I think it's so clear with Marc that with talented people and perseverance and your own drive and will, that you can keep improving and you can keep doing incredible things. And I do think that's one of the inspiring stories from the film.
I also think it's amazing, Marc, is, you're always still completely on top of every form of culture, from art to film to television to music. I've been at the house where Marc is listening to music and I'm like going over and taking photos of what he's listening to, because I was like, how does he know this band? Like, what is this? What is this? And you do still have this insatiable appetite to consume and share, which has been a part of you always. And you can also feel it here.
And one of the things that Alejandro and Marc worked on together with the film, which I thought was so wonderful, were the animations and the music. So there's original music for this film too. And really Alejandro, pioneered that with Marc's intent, obviously, to bring all these new elements to the movie.
Yeah, I think the animation was done by Dan Krubele, who's here tonight. He's an artist from Brooklyn. I was sitting right there. And the music was, Alex is over there as well. Alex Simini. he did the original music, and which I thought were important elements, I think, for the film. And I think that it just really worked well. Mark wanted it from the beginning. He wanted an animation element. He wanted original music. Like I said before, he had a very like specific vision of how this film should, feel, look, sound like.
Oh, amazing. Are we up and running?
I think so.
I thought so, but note to developers of chattable software, make it usable when you're not on Wi-Fi. One of the things I can say, and both Karen and Alejandro know this really well, that since Mark and I have been together since 1997, one of the things that was, I think, really helpful to Mark was that I know him so well that I've been basically speaking for him since he had his stroke. And tonight I was like, I'm not going to speak for you. You've got to use your device.
Here we go.
And then
So how much
So-
time did you two spend together making this film?
We met once a week for almost 2 years, right? I think something like that.
And hours and hours at a time.
Yeah, depends, sometimes Mark would want to go for hours and hours, and sometimes we would just meet for an hour and he'd be like, that's enough for today. But it really depends. Sometimes you were like, no, let's keep going because you were on a roll and you wanted to like get a lot of work done. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to
So
work
what will
together.
the next film be?
Well, Mark has a lot of projects. Like he's always keeps himself pretty busy. I think he doesn't have a film coming up, but he has a book. Am I allowed to say that? So he has a book coming out soon that he's working on. So he's really, constantly.
He'll never stop.
Yeah, he's never gonna stop.
And I mean, I know, so while we're waiting for it, and Mark, how do you want people talking to you today versus obviously there was, and what is the gift of everything that you've gone through? Which I know Sarah will.
yeah, I'm going to answer on behalf of Mark. I mean, one of the things that Mark, the message that he really wants to get across is that he wants to be spoken to like an adult. You have to speak slowly and clearly because he did lose some of his hearing, and he can't hear things in loud rooms. But he is not a child. And when people sometimes look at him and they speak to him as if he's a child, and it's heartbreaking to watch, and he is furious at it. And I think it's human nature to a certain degree, but people really need to raise their consciousness and speak to him like an adult. That's his main message.
It's a good one. Yes,
Good question.
of course.
And I'm happy also to take other questions, but I'd say apart from people who have come to ReelAbilities films before that were on the topic, most people didn't know what aphasia was 2 weeks ago, but now it seems to be the flavor of the month. And how has this impacted, if it has in any way? Is this something that now that there's more awareness towards aphasia, is this something that has changed anything?
Well, I mean, I think
I'm
it's really
referencing,
only
of
been a
course,
few
Bruce
weeks
Willis.
since Bruce Willis. I think that really brought it to the forefront. And I think in a way that it makes people maybe have a new understanding. I mean, how did you feel in that news? In a way, I feel like it's just bringing important conversations because so many people experience this.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that Mark was excited in a sense that this was in the news. Like some of his physicians were on the Today Show speaking about aphasia and its impact, and the fact that Bruce Willis's whole family came out to support him, I think was really critical and lovely. And anything that raises the awareness, especially that this can impact young people, because Mark was only 50. I mean, Charlie was 2, right? Like it's really not something that just happens to, your friend's 85-year-old grandmother or something like that. It can affect young people. I think with Bruce Willis, that's the same thing.
I remember there was 2 incidents that were in the news. There was Luke Perry, who had a stroke, and then John Singleton. And I remember you texting me the news about it and how you were so incredibly like affected by it. But you also were saying how you like the fact that maybe now like people, so such high profile, people might maybe like raise the awareness.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mark would always kind of like share news of articles of stuff that's going on around the world. I feel like you're always like reading the news. You're always up to date with everything.
And he's still active on Instagram.
Right.
And I mean, I remember the days of hearing about the Marc Shiller famous tweets, the tweets from, all over the world when he was working. And there was this, very sort of, at least in like the advertising and marketing industries, like I could step in rooms that had nothing to do with Mark and I would hear people talking about Mark's tweets.
That's funny.
Oh, good.
Amazing.
We might be able to hear something here. This is the famous Mary, by the way.
I wish I could talk. People do sometimes speak to me as if they are speaking to a child, and that makes me angry. It is helpful when people speak slowly and clearly so that I have time to process the words, but I am an adult and want to be treated like one.
The British voices of Mark's choosing.
I like
I
it.
have been working with 2 speech language pathologists since I had my stroke. I also worked with physical and occupational therapists in the beginning to help me walk and use my hands. Other things that helped me get through this were my family, my wonderful caregivers Yeenie and Billy, and my meditation practice. I use this app called Chatable to communicate. I use a stylus to select the idea that I want to express.
We went through a lot of styluses to get to one that would work for Mark.
I have aphasia and apraxia of speech as a result of my stroke. And I want people to understand that these are disorders of communication that do not impact my intelligence. I am still the same person I always was. It is just difficult for me to communicate.
There's a time that I was with Sarah and Mark, and this is the very beginning of Sarah and me getting together and playing with slime. And Mark had something to say, and he wanted his iPad and he wanted his stylus, and we gave it to him. And then immediately he went and put up TED on his iPad and was pointing to the TED and pointing to Sarah and me. And I was like, you want Sarah and me to do a TED talk about slime? Yes. And we were both like, doesn't miss a beat. It's like
Great
all
idea.
there, just like that one insight. We hadn't even really formalized what we were doing yet.
I think it's hard to describe, but like Mark has like incredibly specific things that he wants to say. And once you talk to him, like you get a sense like he's not just generally saying something. He has very specific things that he wants to communicate. And he works closely with Mary to sort of put this text together that he thinks about, beforehand and puts it on the iPad. And it's not just like, somebody's writing it for him or anything like that. I think he's
It's
really,
real.
he's a big part of what he wants to say.
I mean, you can hear him, like I know that this is what he's saying. Like this is from knowing him for so many years that it is really his voice.
what's been really interesting is people who have met him after his stroke. So Mary, really, Alejandro, you've got to know him better after his stroke, and a bunch of people in this room never knew him before. And they'll come up to me and say, well, I only know the post-stroke Marc, and I think he's really awesome. It's always really rewarding, right? That even someone who is speaking through a device, or
They can see,
they can see that.
but you can also see it in the eyes, you know, that you're also, you know, you're there and you're thinking. We always know. I'm like, what's going on? I know he's thinking something.
Isaac's wondering if there's questions, I
I
think,
want to take
right?
questions from the audience.
We have a
I wanna
question.
hear what people have to ask.
Hi, congratulations. That was awesome. And it's so funny because you kept oohing and eyeing. And I was like, she made the film. So it's very interesting that it was the first time that you're seeing it. So that was something that you prepared in advance with your therapist. What about when you want to spontaneously communicate? Do you have more use of your left arm in terms of typing?
No, he can't type. So but he can, it's almost all pre-programmed snippets of language. So he's not going to be typing out sentences or words necessarily, although he does do a little bit of texting. I'm kind of looking at Mary and Darcy, right? So, but he's not actually typing out letters. And in fact, getting back all the letters is a really hard thing for anyone who's had a stroke. So just relearning the alphabet, he's still in the process of doing that for some letters like W and V as a great example.
Something in the film that really struck me was at one point when you were walking to get the book I don't remember if it was 11 Spring or Trespass, but as you're walking across and Marc is saying, "I'm my mom," and you go, "It's the journey, not the destination." Like it was this and it wasn't that, but you and Marc can have this unbelievable dialogue where Marc will allude to something with, you know, his some limited syllables, and Sara can actually say something really eloquent after, and he'll be like, "Yes." And that is, and it's it, because I've been in the room where there's 50 no's before you get to the yes, but it's because of how well you two can read each other.
Trying not to help him so much.
Yeah, that scene is like what it's like Marc speaking pre-iPad, I think, right? It's just a guessing game, and the iPad really helps with specific like ideas.
We have a question down here in the middle.
Hi, Marcy. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for making this beautiful film and sharing your story with us, all of you. I think it's a very, very important film. I was speaking with one of your friends. Is your name Brian?
Yeah, he's in the film actually.
And Brian was saying that Sara and Marc had helped discover so many people. And what that made me think is actually, I think my experience of you was that you helped me discover myself. And as I watch this film, I'm thinking you're going to help so many people discover themselves. And I just think it's going to be it's going to have a very profound impact. And so my question is, what are your plans for distribution and marketing?
I think Marc wants to self-distribute, but we'll see. It's a whole separate project.
Can we get Banksy to help?
Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to say, first of all, my name is Abi. I have a stroke and aphasia, so it's hard to, yeah. And I just want to say, amazing job. Like really, you are very new, but it's very, you are speaking over and over and over, and it's very, very good. So awesome job. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, nobody has their hands up. We give it to somebody for a second question.
Um, when Charlie was being interviewed, she was doing same. Does the whole family use sign language for Sammy?
No, so we don't. Sammy doesn't even use the iPad to communicate. Not sure why Mark cut her out of the film, by the way, but we'll have to talk about that later. Although she looks so cute in all those shots. Charlie learned sign language from nursery school, and I thought it was amazing that she was using it. And what I actually loved even more about that moment in the film was that she was so comfortable speaking with Darcy, the speech therapist. And I kind of said it takes a village, right? Like really a whole group of people have come into our home, and you don't see half of them there, who are taking care of Sammy and Charlie, and even taking care of me, and obviously helping Mark. And it's that love of the people who have really given years of their lives to be with us that makes it so easy for Charlie to sit there with someone who's not part of the family and actually really be so vulnerable and honest. And I thought that was a lovely moment that was much bigger than what was even actually happening with the back and forth.
How do folks find out more, follow up on the film?
The best thing to do is follow Mark on all of his social media at Marc Shiller.
I want to thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for this fantastic film,
Thank you.
this great conversation.
Thank you.
We look forward to this impacting and taking this further. And I think this film is relevant really to absolutely everyone. Thank you all for being a part of this. Thank you. Join us tomorrow. There's much more coming up with ReelAbilities. Use the force there. And thank you all. Have a good night.